Chapter 7. Question Document Examination. Introduction. Question document examination involves many areas of expertise. Included under question document examination are the following disciplines: handwriting, typewriting, photocopying and computer printers, forgery, paper and inks, writing instruments, computer disks, gambling machinery, stamps, as in the rubber pad kind, and the dating of documents. Question document examiners traditionally have specialized in the study and investigation of question documents to determine the facts surrounding their preparation and subsequent treatment. They examine not only suspected question signatures but also other handwritten and hand-printed documents, typewritten and printed material. Sinusuri nila hindi lamang ang mga peking pirma, kundi pati na rin sulat kamay at iba pang mga print na dokumento. In addition, the examiner is called upon to reveal alterations or substitutions in documents and decipher erased or obliterated writings. Many of these cases occur in employee theft or medical malpractice. To accomplish this challenging task, a variety of sophisticated procedures and equipment have been developed. Ang tagasuri ng dokumento ang tumutukoy sa mga pagbabago, pagpapalit, pagbura or natanggal ng mga sulat. The examiner also is asked to determine the authenticity of a document by analyzing inks, paper, and other substances. This might include carbon copies, typewriter, ribbons, and correction liquid. They might include instruments such as mechanical, recording device, and check writers. Hiniling din sa tagasuri na tukuyin kung tunay ang isang dokumento sa pamamagitan ng pag-aaral ng iba't ibang uri ng tinta, papel, etc. Kaya nilang suriin ang mga manunulat gamit ang mga mechanical recording device. A handwriting examination is needed when there is a question of authenticity of a signature or other writing. A document is examined such as wills, deeds, insurance, or bank records and checks when a dispute arises as to authorship. Question document cases were also examined where the problem does not involve handwriting identification. Such cases may involve deciphering, obliterations, photocopy fraud, or other form of document alteration. Kailangan ng pagsusuri sa sulat kamay kapag mayroong duda sa isang pirma o lagda at iba pang sulat. Kalimitan sa mga papeles na sinusuri ay ang mga kasunduan, mga tseke at iba pa, etc. Fraud by forgery is not foolproof. Not two people write exactly the same way, nor for that matter does one single person, your own signature varies. Who wrote a given writing or printing sample is determined by identifying a combination of handwriting traits that are unique to one person only. Became nobody writes exactly the same way twice. A document examiner needs to determine how much a person varies his or her handwriting. Doing this requires a sufficient amount of authentic or known writing to compare against the questioned handwriting. A document examiner's wishlist includes the following: ayon dito, walang dalawang tao ang nagsusulat sa isang paraan o walang pagkakapareho. Nakasaad dito na walang sino man ang nakakasulat na eksakto sa parehong paraan ng dalawang beses. Can a document examiner work with photocopies of question document? The question must be answered on a case-by-case basis. If the copy is a good one, and if there is enough information in writing is allow an opinion, a copy is sufficient. But there are some situations where the opinion rests on a subtle aspect of the writing that might only be visible on an original viewed under the microscope. In such situations, examination of the original is critical. Document examiner prefers to examine original document. Photocopies do not reproduce the finer features of handwriting such as pressure, ductus, and line crossing. Examination of originals also eliminates the possibility of a forgery by cutting, pasting, and copying a signature onto a document. The absence or loss of a document is out of character for a situation. Even so, originals are not always available. In such cases, it is common for document examiners to give a qualified opinion when examining non-originals. Mga kaso ng dokumento kung saan sinuri na ang mga problema ay hindi sangkot sa pagkakakilanlan ng sulat kamay. Ang mga nasabing kaso ay maaaring may kasamang paninira, pandaraya ng kopya at iba pang anyo ng pagpapalit o pagbabago sa dokumento. Document examiners need a sufficient amount of known writing, called exemplars, which are used to compare against the questioned writing. Many cases involve questioned signatures. In such cases, 5 to 25 signatures is sufficient, and a person's handwriting or handprinting habits can change over time. Ang mga nag-aaral daw at nagsusuri ng mga dokumento ay nangangailangan ng sapat na dami ng kilalang sulat para magamit sa paghahalin tulad sa pinag-uusapang sulat o kasulatan. At ang pagsulat daw ng tao ay maaaring lumipas pagkatapos ng mahabang panahon. Consequently, the exemplars and questioned writing should be contemporary with each other. Ideally, both bodies of writing should be written with a year or two of each other. Sometimes, the quantity and quality of writing samples available for examination does not exactly meet the criteria listed above. A forensic may be given in order to compensate. Examining the entire document. Examine the whole document rather than just a few handwritten words or a single signature. For example, even if the document is a single page, consider further investigation of this question. Dahil dito, ang pagsusuring tanong ay dapat na napapanahon sa bawat isa. Ang parehong pagsulat ay dapat na nakasulat sa 1 taon o 2 sa bawat isa. Minsan ang dami at kalidad ng pagsulat na magagamit para sa pagsusuri ay hindi eksaktong tumutugon sa pamantayan na nakalista sa itaas. Isaalang-alang ang karagdagang pagsisiyasat sa mga katanungang ito. Is the letterhead one that might be challenged for date or authenticity? Is the sheet standard size? Is the evidence of cutting to create an unusual size? What are the significance of the folds? Are there erasures or crowding of lines or words? If handwritten, should the text and signature be written with the same pen? If typewritten, was only one machine used? Was the document typed continuously? Do all lines align properly? Is the arrangement of material on the page normal or usual? Are there unusually wide gaps between the text and signatures or any other arrangement not typical of normal documents? Are there stains or marks on the paper? Are there suggestions of indentations from writing on another document? In dealing with a photocopy, where is the original and has it been compared with this copy? If the original isn't at hand, where is the first copy of it? In other words, might we be dealing with a forged photocopy? Is the question documents consist of several pages? The problem becomes more complex. For example, is there evidence that a page has been inserted, deleted, or substituted? Are all the pages in the same general condition? Have they all been written by the same person with the same ink or pen? Were the pages ever bound together? And if so, how? staples, pin, or paper clips. Also check to see if there is consistency from page to page. Are the writing impressions on a paper the same as one before, or are they some other source? Are all the signatures authentic, principals and witnesses? Is there evidence that the document was bound in its present from when executed? Are there marginal notes that may reveal when the document was assembled? Is each page initialed properly by the same pen? Each document may contain its own special problems. The investigator and attorney must think of particular questions before their opponents. Ang bawat dokumento ay maaaring maglaman ng sarili niyang problema. Kaya ang investigador at abogado ay dapat na mag-isip ng mga partikular na katanungan bago gawin ng kanilang kalaban. Ink and paper analysis. Open, the document examiner is called upon to distinguish not only between inks but also to identify the source of a particular ink. More and more, this type of examination is being conducted chemically. Open, the examiner could differentiate between different ink sources through specialized photographic techniques and various non-destructive tests. In the last 20 years, however, the most common chemical ink testing technique has been thin layer chromatography. Additionally, chemical tests including high pressure liquid chromatography, HPLC, solubility tests and densitometry allow direct comparison of many colored and invisible components of ink. Pagsusuri ng tinta at papel. Kadalasan, ang tagasuri ng dokumento ay tinatawag upang makilala hindi lamang sa pagitan ng mga tinta kundi pati na rin upang makilala ang mga pinagmulan ng isang partikular na tinta. Bukod pa rito, ang mga pagsusuri sa kemikal kabilang ang mataas na presyon ng likido. Mga solubility test at densitometry ay nagbibigay daan sa direktang paghahambing ng maraming kulay at hindi nakikitang mga bahagi ng tinta.
Indication of spuriousness may take the form of misaligned typing, different fonts, and different font size. Misaligned preprinted matter, incorrect vertical, horizontal, and margin spacing. Shadowing in the join areas, disproportionate area size, different preprinted material and ink densities, missing portion of writing and printing. Covered by the paste up to closely trimmed or masked by an opaque fluid. Additionally, it may be that the trash marks described in the section on photocopier examination surrounding the signature are in greater or lesser quantity than those on the remainder of the document. This is especially true if either the model signature or document to be used in the paste up was itself a photocopy. The best indication of what may be a fraudulent photocopy is when the original document has disappeared or has been misplaced. Sinasabi dito na ang pahiwatig ng pagkakasala ay maaaring magkaroon ng form ng hindi pagkakasunod ng pagtatype ng iba't ibang mga font at iba't ibang mga laki ng font, hindi naayos na nakaprint na bagay, hindi tamang patayo, pahalang at pag-spacing ng margin. Pagtatabing sa mga sumali na lugar, hindi katimbang na laki ng lugar, iba't ibang nakaprint na material at mga density ng tinta. Nawawalang mga bahagi ng pagsulat at pagpiprint. Dagdag pa, maaaring ang mga trash mark na inilawan sa seksyon ng pagsusuri sa photocopier na nakapalibot sa pirma ay mas malaki o mas kaunting dami kaysa sa mga natitirang dokumento. Totoo ito lalo na kung ang alinmang modelo ng lagda o dokumento na gagamitin sa i-paste ay isang photocopy mismo. Ang pinakamagandang indikasyon ng kung ano-ano maaaring isa pa mapalinlang na photocopy ay kapag ang original na dokumento ay nawala o naglagay sa lugar. Even when none of these indication of photocopy forgery are present, the prudent document examiner that issues an opinion about the authenticity of a signature or an entire disputed document, where the submitted evidence is a photocopy, will qualify the opinion is predicated upon the questioned document being a true and accurate reproduction of the original document. Many examiners go further by including a statement in the report of findings that founds the accuracy of opinions involving photocopies upon viewing the original document prior to any court testimony. Sabi dito na kahit na wala sa mga pahiwatig na ito ng pagpalsya ng isang photocopy ay naroroon. Ang masinop na tagasuri ng dokumento na naglalabas ng isang opinyon tungkol sa pagiging tunay na isang lagda o isang buong pinagtatalo ng dokumento kung saan ang isinumiting ebidensya ay isang photocopy ay magiging karapat-dapat na ang opinyon ay batay sa pinag-uusapang dokumento, pagiging isang totoo at tumpak na kopya ng orihinal na dokumento. Maaring may mga tagasuri ang nagpapatuloy sa pamamagitan ng pagsasama ng isang pahayag sa uulat ng mga natuklasan na natagpuan ang kawastuhan ng mga opinyon, kinasasangkutan ng mga photocopy sa pagtingin sa orihinal na dokumento bago ang anumang pagpatutuo sa korte. Understanding there are many document examiners or employing laboratories that will refuse submission and examination of disputed documents that are not originals. While this posture is certainly safe, it may not serve the best interests of justice. Each day our society becomes further enmeshed in machine-copied documents. The contemporaneous photocopy machine is quite capable of producing sharp, clear copies that may rival photographs. Even some of the more modern facsimile machines have the capability to transmit sharp image that rival the photocopy machine of only a few years ago. Sinasabi dito na maraming mga tagasuri ng dokumento o gumagamit ng mga laboratorio na tatanggihan ang pagsusumite at pagsusuri ng mga pinagtatalo ng dokumento na hindi orihinal. Habang ang postura na ito ay tiyak na ligtas, hindi ito maaaring maghatid ng pinakamahusay na interes ng hustisya. Araw-araw ang lipunan ay magiging lalong enmeshed sa mga nakopya na dokumento ng machine. Ang kasabay na makina ng photocopy ay may kakayahang makabuo ng matalas, malinaw ng mga kopya na maaaring karibal ng mga larawan, kahit na ang ilan sa mga mas modernong machine ng facsimile ay may kakayahang magpadala ng matalas na imahe ng karibal. Ang photocopy machine na ilang taong lamang ang nakakaraan. Obviously, photocopies that display prohibitively poor quality may precluded from examination, but those displaying adequate line quality are deserving of some degree of qualified opinion. Sinasabi dito na malinaw na ang photocopy ay nagpapakita ng pinagbabawal na hindi magandang kalidad ay maaaring maiiwasan sa pagsusuri. Ngunit ang mga nagpapakita ng sapat na kalidad ng linya ay karapat-dapat sa ilang antas ng kwalipikadong opinyon. Examination of photocopies. This information sheet is designed to aid in understanding the capabilities of the forensic document examiner with regard to examination involving photocopies. It is divided into two parts. The first addresses the limitation of photocopies insofar as the examination of document problem. The second discusses the identifiability of photocopies themselves. Sinasabi dito na ang examination of photocopies ay dinisenyo upang makatulong sa pag-unawa sa mga kakayahan ng forensic document examiner patungkol sa mga pagsusuri na kinasasangkutan ng mga photocopies. Nahati ito sa dalawang bahagi. Ito na nga yung sinabi ko. The first addresses the limitation of photocopies insofar as the examination of document problem. The second is discusses the identifiability of photocopies themselves. Examination of problems from photocopies. While it is possible to make examinations and report on problems of handwriting, signatures, typewriting, and other such matters from photocopy reproduction rather than the original document, in most cases the original is preferable for a variety of reasons. Most reports, verbal or written, based on studies utilizing copies are rendered as qualified as certain evidence may be difficult or impossible to observe from this reproduction. Sinasabi dito na habang posible na ang magsagawa ng mga pagsusuri at mag-ulat tungkol sa mga problema ng handwriting, lagda, typewriting at iba pang mga naturang usapin mula sa kopya ng photocopy kaysa sa mga orihinal na dokumento. Sa karamihan ng mga kaso, ang orihinal ay mas gusto para sa mga iba't ibang mga kadahilanan. Karamihan sa mga ulat, batay sa mga pag-aaral na gumagamit ng mga kopya ay nai-rendered bilang kwalipikado dahil ang ilang mga katibayan ay maaaring maging mahirap o imposible upang obserbahan mula sa mga reproductions na ito. If examination or questioned or disputed material must be made preliminary or exclusively from photocopies, it is important that the clearest reproduction be made available for such examinations. The clearest copies are generally those which were made directly from the original. Copies of copies or multi-generation copies are increasingly less desirable as the number of generations increase. Sinasabi dito na kung ang mga pagsusulit o pinag-uusapan o pinagtatalo ng material ay dapat gawin pauna o eksklusibo mula sa mga photocopy, mahalaga na ang pinakamalinaw na pagpaparami ay magagamit para sa mga nasabing pagsusuri. Ang pinakamalinaw na mga kopya sa pangkalahatan, ang mga na direktang ginawa mula sa orihinal, ang mga kopya maraming henerasyon ay lalong hindi gaanong kanais-nais habang dumarami ang mga henerasyon. As reproductions from microfilm or microfic tend to be of lesser quality than standard photocopies, oftentimes it is advantageous to arrange for examination of the original microfilm on a viewing device. Depending on the quality of the original microfilm, such examination can often allow observation of evidence which might not be seen from microfilm reproduction. Tulad ng mga microfilm o microfilm ay may mga posibilidad na maging mas mababang kalidad kaysa sa karaniwang mga photocopy. Madalas na mas makakabuting mag-ayos para sa pagsusuri ng orihinal na microfilm sa isang aparato sa pagtingin. Nakasalalay sa kalidad ng orihinal na microfilm, ang mga nasabing pagsusuri ay kadalasang pinapayagan ang pagmamasid ng katibayan na maaaring hindi makita mula sa rami ng microfilm. Signature and other handwriting identification problems examined from photocopies allowed examination of individual letters forms, connection between letter and general appearance in many cases, but limit the ability of the forensic document examiner to observe evidence such as speed of execution, lifts of the writing instrument, poses of the writing instrument, and other important evidence. In addition, and with special regard to problems involving signatures, the ease with which an individual can reproduce an original genuine writing from one document onto another document using the photocopier is always a consideration. It is possible to make such a transfer with little or no evidence which would reveal such as fraudulent preparation. Sabi dito na ang lagda at iba pang mga problema sa pagkakakilanlan ng sulat kamay na sinuri mula sa mga photocopies ay nagbibigay daan sa pagsusuri ng mga individual na form ng liham, koneksyon sa pagitan ng sulat at pangkalahatang itsura sa maraming mga kaso. Ngunit nililimitahan ang kakayahan ng forensic document examiner na obserbahan ang mga ebidensyang tulad ng bilis ng pagpapatupad, pag-angat ng instrumento sa pagsulat, pag-pose sa pagsulat, at instrumento sa pagsulat at iba pang mahalagang ebidensya. Bilang karagdagan at may espesyal na pagsasaalang-alang sa mga problemang kinasasangkutan ng mga lagda. Ang kadalian kung saan ang isang individual ay maaaring magparami ng isang orihinal na tunay na pagsulat mula sa isang dokumento papunta sa isa pang dokumento gamit ang photocopier ay palaging isang pagsasalang-alang. Posibleng gumawa ng naturoang paglipat na may kaunti o walang katibayan na magbubunyag ng naturang mapanlinlang na paghahanda. Typewriting identification problems examined from photocopies will in many cases not be greatly hindered. It is normally possible to identify the manufacturer and model of a machine from a copy. In many cases, the defects which allow an individual machine to be identified can be observed from a photocopy as well. However, this is not always the case and is often dependent on the quality of the copy submitted from examination. Sabi dito na ang mga problema sa pagkakakilala sa mga typewriter na sinusuri mula sa mga photocopy ay sa maraming mga kaso ay hindi masyadong hadlangan. Karaniwang posible na makilala ang tagagawa at modelo ng isang makina mula sa isang kopya. Sa maraming mga kaso, ang mga depekto na nagpapahintulot sa isang individual na makina makilala ay maaaring sundin mula sa isang photocopy. Pati na rin. Gayunpaman, hindi ito palaging ang kaso at madalas na nakasalalay sa kalidad ng kopya na sinumite para sa examination. Other document problems are often hindered when examination are made from photocopies rather than original documents. For instance, erasures and alteration are often impossible to observe and record from a copy. Ang iba pang mga problema sa dokumento ay madalas na hadlang kapag ang mga pagsusuri ay ginawa mula sa mga photocopy kaysa sa mga orihinal na dokumento. Halimbawa, ang mga burado at pagbabago ay madalas na imposibleng pagmasdan at itala mula sa isang kopya. Examination and identification of photocopies. The examination of photocopies has become important part of the forensic document examiner's role. It is often possible to identify a particular manufacturer and model of photocopier from a single reproduction made from that machine. More often and more important in many problems, the identification of an individual machine is possible. Ang pagsusuri ng mga photocopy ay naging mahalagang bahagi ng papel ng forensic document examiner. Kadalasang posible na makilala ang isang partikular na tagagawa at modelo ng photocopier mula sa isang solong pagpaparami na ginawa mula sa makina na yon. Mas madalas at mas mahalaga sa maraming mga problema, posible ang pagkakilala sa isang individual na makina. Identification of photocopiers with regard to manufacturer is dependent upon the observation of various evidence appearing on a copy which is a characteristic of a particular model manufacturer. Ang pagkakakilanlan ng mga photocopier na patungkol sa paggawa ay nakasalalay sa pagmamasid ng iba't ibang katibayan na lumilitaw sa isang kopya na katangian ng isang partikular na modelo. The identification of an individual machine is made possible through the observation of defects which are produced on the resulting copies. The most common of these defects are called trash marks and are more often the result of dust and dirt particles. These particles are seen as black specks on a copy and can enable identification of one copy with another if the size, shape, and groupings of this mark are comparable between the two copies. Defects can also be the result of rulers and other parts of a particular machine. Ang pagkakalanlan ng isang individual na ay ginagawang posible sa pamagitan ng pagmamasid ng mga depekto na nakopya sa mga nagresultang kopya. Ang pinakakaraniwan na sa mga depekto na ito ay tinatawag na trash mark at mas madalas na resulta ng mga dust o mga dumi na maliit. Ang mga maliit na butil na ito ay nakikita bilang mga itim na specks sa isang kopya at maaaring paganahin ang pagkakakilanlan ng isang kopya sa isa pa kung ang laki, hugis at pagpapangkat ng mga markang ito ay maihambing sa pagitan ng dalawang kopya. Ang mga depekto ay maaari ding maging resulta ng mga ruler at iba pang mga bahagi ng isang partikular na makina. Ang tagal ng oras The period of time that a particular copy was produced can also be identified in many cases. If specimens made from the same machine at around the same time can be obtained for comparison due to the fact that many defects are temporary such as dust or dirt which is cleaned or off periodically, defect configuration can help to establish time of reproduction. Ang tagal ng oras na gumawa ng isang particular na kopya ay maaaring ring makilala sa maraming mga kaso kung ang mga specimen na ginawa mula sa mga parehong makina sa halos parehong oras ay maaaring makuha para sa paghahambing. Dahil ang katunayan na maraming mga depekto ay pansamantala tulad ng alikabok o yung dumi na nalinis ng panapanahon, makakatulong ang pagsasaayos ng depekto upang maitaguyod ang oras ng pagpaparami. Finally, while it is possible to create a fraudulent document utilizing a photocopier, often evidence of such preparation can be observed on copies. The pasting of a genuine signature from another document onto a document on which it never appeared, and then photocopying the paste up can sometimes be detected from the sorting copy. Sa huli, habang posible na lumikha ng isang mapanlinlang na dokumento na gumagamit ng isang photocopier, madalas na ang katibayan ng mga naturang paghahanda ay maaaring maobserbahan sa mga kopya. Ang pagpe-paste ng isang tunay na lagda mula sa isa pang dokumento papunta sa isang dokumento kung saan hindi ito lumitaw at pagkatapos ay i-photocopy o i-paste kung minsan ay maaaring makita mula sa nagresultang kopya. Questioned photocopies. One of the most common questions from the field involves photocopies of documents. An investigator typically has a photocopy and needs to know if the writer of a signature on the copy can be identified. The question posed by the investigator is, do you examine photocopies or do I have to get the original? Sabi dito na, ang isa sa mga pinakakaraniwang tanong mula sa mga patlang ay nasasangkot ng mga photocopy ng mga dokumento. Ang isang investigador ay karaniwang may isang photocopy at kailangang malaman kung ang may akda ng isang pirma sa kopya ay maaaring makilala. Contrary to popular belief, the laboratory will examine photocopies of handwritten entries. We will examine anything you send. The probability of getting the answer you want is dependent upon the quality of the document. Photocopy you send in from examination, no copy, however it was produced, is a good as the original. The ability of the examiner to render a definite opinion is significantly reduced by the loss of detail inherent in any copying process. Taliwas sa paniniwala ng publiko, susuriin ng mga laboratorio ang mga photocopy ng sulat kamay ng mga entry. Susuriin nila ang mga anumang ipadala mo. Ang posibilidad na makuha ang nais mong sagot ay nakasalalay sa kalidad ng dokumento na ipinadala mo para sa pagsusuri. Walang kopya, subalit ito ay ginawa ay isang mahusay tulad ng orihinal. Ang kakayahan ng tagasuri na magbigay ng isang tiyak na opinyon ay makabuluhang nabawasan ng pagkawala ng detalye na likas sa anumang proseso ng pagkopya.
Handprinting and numericals. Handprinting is a disconnect style of writing in which each letter is written separately and includes block capitals and manuscript writing. The method of identifying handprinting is fundamentally the same as is used for the identification of cursive script, that is the improbability of a number of individual characteristics accidentally coinciding in two writings from different sources. Questions often arise regarding handprinting used in addressing packages, envelopes, labels, and for other purposes such as official forms and applications. Handprinting is also often found in anonymous letter and is employed as a means of hiding the identity of the writer. This style of writing is one of the most frequent disguises used by the anonymous letter writer and is quite effective if no specimen handprinting is available for comparison. Handwriting and handprinting. Although not all handwriting is identifiable to a specific writer, the examination of handwriting characteristics can sometimes determine the origin of the authenticity of the questioned writing. Traits such as age, sex, personality, or intent cannot be determined from handwriting examination. Sinasabi dito na nalalaman nila kung sino mismo ang sumulat, nalalaman kung original o hindi, then malalaman mo lang kung saan galing ito, pero hindi mo malalaman kung anong sex, age, personality. Some reasons for inconclusive results include the following: limited questioned and or known writing, lack of contemporaneous writing or lapse of time between execution of questioned and known writing, distortion or disguise in the questioned and known writing, lack of sufficient identify characteristics, submission of photocopies evidence instead of original evidence. Ito naman yung mga hint na nakikita ng mga nag-e-examine ng sulat. What can be determined from mechanical printing methods? How a counterfeit document was produced, what type of printing method an investigator should be looking for, whether the document is genuine or not, identify the specific device that produced the documents. Yan dito, ito. Makikita ang fake handprint, then kung fake ba o real, nalalaman ng mga nag-e-examine ng sulat. Nakikita ang pinagkaiba. Graphic arts printing. Printed documents can sometimes be associated as originating from a common source or identified with known printing paraphernalia such as artwork, negatives, and plates. So sinasabi naman dito na kahit daw mga paintings or mga plates ay kaya din gayahin. Ito ang example ng painting at saka ng plates. Sa painting, yung iba nagpe-painting tapos lalagay lang yung tunay na ng pangalan ng nag-paint, tapos yung iba niniwala na akala nga nila yun agad yung original, pero hindi pala. Makikita ang pinagkaiba. Ganun din sa mga plates. Altered or obliterated writing. The presence of alteration or obliterated writing can sometimes be determined, and the writing can sometimes be deciphered. Sinasabi naman dito yung mga illegal na documents na may mga erasures, yung mga pinapalitan ng pangalan, tsaka mismong original na papel ang pinapalitan. For example, yung pinapalitan ng name, then ng mga information. Then what can be determined from erasures, alterations, and obliterations? Visualize the text of obliterated material. Visualize the original text of altered material. Determine if material had been erased and possibly visualize that text. Pag sinabing alterations, yun yung mga pinapalitan, and then the obliterations, yung binubura ng ballpen. For example, yung ginugurihan. Obliterations ang tawag doon. Paper. Torn edges can sometimes be positively matched. The manufacturer can sometimes be determined if a watermark is present. Paper can be examined for intended writing. Do not rub the indentations with a pencil. Do not add indentation by writing on top of evidence. Dito, malalaman mo kung anong manufacturer ng papel based sa watermark ng gumawa at kung ano ang fibers at chemicals na ginamit. Malalaman din kung saan bansa ito galing. What can be determined from paper? Paper fibers and chemical makeup of paper. Yun na nga, region of country where paper was produced. Yan, ito yung example. China tissues paper with the manufacturer's watermark. Dito sa example na ito, inalaman na galing China dahil nakalagay na watermark ay manufacturer na galing sa China. Burned or charred paper. Information on burned or charred documents can sometimes be deciphered. The document should be minimally handled. The documents shipped in the container in which it was burned by polyester film encapsulation or between layers of cotton in the rigid container. Then, what can be determined from the charred or water damaged documents? The text of a charred documents can be visualized. Faded writing on water damaged documents can be visualized. Yung nabasa, tapos na umuupas yung sulat, yung ganon. Then there are methods for dyeing documents to minimize damage. Ito yung burned and charred papers, yung mga nasunog. Then restorations of water damaged paper. Check writers. A check writer impressions can sometimes be identified with the check writer that produces it. Examination of a check writer impressions can be sometimes determine the brand of the check writer. Ito gaya din to ng paper, gaya din ng may mga manufacturer din kung saan siya galing. Ito example, cheque, scam. Malalaman lang na scam ito kung hindi magmamatch or hindi sa manufacturer na yon mismo ganun galing. Embossing and seals. An embossed and sealed impressions can sometimes be identified with the instrument that produces it. Ito example, fake diploma, an example. Malalaman lang na fake ito pag iba ang ginamit nila sa paglalagay ng diploma, unlike sa ginagamit sa original na diploma. Rubber stamp. A rubber stamp impression can sometimes be identified with the rubber stamp that produced it. Submit the rubber stamp to the laboratory and clean. Yan example. Then, what can be determined from physical matching? Paper, stamps, tape, etc. Whether two pieces of paper were at one time a single unit. If a stamp came from a specific stamp, book, or roll. If a piece of tape came from a specific roll of tape. Whether a tablet paper came from a certain tablet. Then submitting question documents evidence. Then documentary evidence should be preserved in the condition in which it was found. It should be folded, torn, marked, soiled, stamped, written or handled unnecessary. Mark documents obtrusively by writing the collector's initial, date, and other informations with a pencil. Then, whenever possible, submit the original evidence to the laboratory. The lack of detail in photocopies makes examinations difficult. Copies are sufficient for reference file searches. Then, flash paper is a hazardous material. Do not churn flash paper near combustible materials. Sell flash paper in polyethylene envelopes and refrigerate. Then do not store or ship photocopies in plastic envelopes.